Kare? Oh.
So we'll begin with the prayers before teachings.
Shang salwa tang chu chang chakpa tang jitsu ye rang kur jang sorwa ye gewa chung zai daki chip sa pa tam je daki chang chip shir ngo sa je gu chu chu kang me to tam re ra lam ji Nyur de jamban de sanji ondo make de parwaye Drogo nam de jong la cho par cho etam guru rana mandala kanar yata ya me simche nam ki sambata Loye chepter cheta var chechon tomon thagpaye chujin koloi korto sor Tusum sanye tam chake ngo ritan kenkur gyamsu chabda katan sonda mam chiba Jibzun Huangun Tsai Lama Rinpoche Yi Japje Pamodur Mechang Chama Tang Tarwala Gosum Kupa Chimu Goni Pshung Tsajung Kyabsu Nyevaran Chio Shingi Laparan Zato Sol Kongke Jason Tavi Mungu Kesaran Zambi Dang Chajang Tsang Hui Zem Chuzo Sarvi Rukunu Mek Dersaran Gyur Tukji Dhamma Kuni Kyuran Chiktan Sumji Kongkyab Tawang Pama Karu Japa Terang Daglu Yinsor Kyong Orgin Solang Pami Dongporo Yarwi Nam Turang Jenlun Ki Chau Sandang Khwebsha Yundan Songbar Pamam Jongni Nyanga Pamo Rol Kunsang dorsam garav kara sang, pama kara jembang nikar nga, sosor namnya tertan gersas, kater lama namlak solwa endev, gombolo devaryan dewa tang, tome yignim shulang chujit, chukyung yonshe kwago jila son zamlang jancho namla, solwa endev, marvi sangim chenvinyang la kar, kondop zang purmalam nambarach, Tipji Gary Tenlin Zanza Mipham Rinpoche Solwa Ayendev Nature War Teringi Jang Kamso Jakwar Tukji Shanlawi Larman Jingme Punso Jabla Solwan Dev Gongke Tobam Power Shenji Lo Tosum Dungara Jenda Chekin Ken Nyasome Hongjivar Gilas Semchen don tum nyur to da zon na tamba nam je num to zal to sol. Oya, tatani terang nga tsu yang kir tratok la huete tuya ke korkap chiu shong song. Tani tat di huete di cheto tanda Mipham Rinpoche zapi tsoni zongjuk ko nyamlin pye tsurkur kode di huete ke cheto kyang zo tratok la tratok ni gyarkap raman mangpo ni te gyarkap chituk tsam duk zegaduk gyarkap mandawab chituk tsam ni di nangla nyan yo sari tani tamchil la terang di huetit ke cheto kerang zo tratok ni yuk songwa te la tukji che je wa tang tani nga zo losar yang ta wok losar te nga tsi la nye wari nima kaki ki je ni losar te tipshe na kerang zo losar la samlu trakhi te lak je wa yens.
So we have an opportunity again to be gathered here and receive teachings over the internet. And the teachings that I'll be giving are a pith instruction by Mipham Rinpoche called The Mirror of Essential Practice Instructions for Unifying the Two Accumulations. And so I first just want to thank all of you for coming to receive these teachings, for watching them online, and participating in this wonderful text. And there are so many of you joining us from all over the world. I'm told over 16 people from over 16 different countries are watching today. And so I'm just really delighted to have this opportunity to teach on this text and happy that all of you want to receive these teachings. And also, since we're coming on to the Tibetan New Year, Losar, I'd also like to begin by giving a Losar greeting, Losar Tashidale.
Oh, teni teni tab shirtang ka ndi huete ka korte soni zongjuk jipi nyamleng ka korte ngi chikshat samba yin der ngamani shat samgi charji yote yinna yang yinrang warto shayi korkap shong ma song teni Mipham Rinpoche la takbar tenderi ka manga qgnat mangpo yori lama mangpo nderi song yo mare teni Mipham Rinpoche nyamlen chong ka nangla qgnat mangpo du ni nderi mangpo chik song yore 하장 그 가르침부 냠는 지그래 등아츠 니 냠는 때 가르지나 뭐 마부 તની દી નંગલા ક્યાં તુ તાદા રંગલા સોસુ 냠는 칸남기 તાદા રંગલા સોસુ તેની જોતે દીના કે 냠는 때 남신 로크 메빠당 냠는 그나라 노르와당는 트와 마부 요빠지 다하고 용거래 디나니 어 딥셔나 인데 지그샷 삼바yen 가장 가르침부 지그래 samkhadu nga cho wol la samlo tangna yang di namjin nyamnen shek menkan tang di namjin Mipham kan ma po yore America la samlo tangna yang tenin di namjin Mipham kan hajang ma po re debjin ton zambu lang ge yer ka ma bu na la yin na yang di namjin nyamnen shek hi menkan di nyamnen ga na te shur do ko yong kan di nyamnen ga na li nyam yong kan ma po yore samkhadu o deep shirna tani teng in the chig tarik ni kap chig shet samba te yin se
So this is an instruction on unifying the two accumulations in our practice. And it is an instruction that I have long wanted to give and until now have not had the right opportunity. And as we look at Mipham Rinpoche's writings, he gave so many teachings of pith instructions on different key points that are crucial to our practice and the growth of our practice. And so there are so many different short and pith instructions like these given by Mipham Rinpoche that synthesize our practice, that point out where there are errors, that point out what the key points are that are necessary for the practice to be correct and to flourish and so forth. And so it's an incredibly important teaching and wonderful advice for us to receive. And it's intended that we, look at our own practice as we're going through these teachings in our own, look at ourselves and see, am I missing any of these things? And where my practice have, kind of be in error or mistaken. And so it's a self-correction that we're able to do when we have these kinds of instructions. And that's why I think that this advice is crucial, is very important for each of us. Because throughout the world where Buddhism is practiced, such as in Tibet and so forth, there are many practitioners who do not have the unifying of the two accumulations, who are lacking certain key points in practice and unaware and don't know that they are. The same in the West. Here in the United States and America, there are many people who also are lacking these key points and don't know that they are. And the same goes for wherever you find Buddhist practitioners anywhere in the world, in the various countries across the globe, then there are so many practitioners then who might be missing these vital points of practice. And so this is corrective advice, which enables us to catch where we might be in error and to cultivate our practice in the best possible way. And so I'm just very happy to have this opportunity to give this teaching here today. So.
Teni ta kunkin lonchen ramjim ko kari sonre zena jura semket ngurji mikpa met jila ngo atambi zinkurna tarlam dropi chipa namsam yen soni nga chu nyamnen kari shina teni tambaksam zeati season go khyo sori ngipar ta tambaksam ko season go sori yenna yang di nga chu tambaksam ko season go zeate yang kare song khyo re zena Tali tambo ba, when nga chu nangbi lam lak sar ten jungkan dang. Teni yenna tambo nyeni tambaksam chang go mare. Kyan chu chang tabyang tab go mare. Terang nga chu when di nang la nyen yong kan ka nang la yenna yang. Teni sarwa ma po yang yo tek kare. Tip sher na te chu ngipar te kyan chu tandi mau pa na ngindri shek yen samya tang. O nangbi lam ka nang la takpa chimbu lam nyamsu lenguna nat di thola changhayozo samya chik oda tetani hako gukhiyore mahtoma tambo kerang chutani sarwa namki kale kale shini tambo rang soso la trowa ki nambi chuzate thomar gewa tang warto gewa tang tamar gewi ramjin che yin songre tezena kare ze kore zena thoma 측대초 투밥셰피 니kam나양 텔라나 스토완 페르와 당나 텔라 가와케와 마토코마 텔라 드니 셈라 머가와 당 머데와 짠니 멘칸 토므르 게와 당 와르토 삼밥셰피 니kam나 회나 중고 똘라 짐죽시니 딱샹샤밥시니 딴라와 빅니까 돈덕 코랑 딴라와 빅니kam나양 때 드니 샘기 로독 탐쳇도 세르로와 태좀 탐쳇도 메로와 독바 탐쳇도 세르로비라고 진짜 임비셔나 와르도 게와 옌스 드니 곰비 냠슬렘비니 감나야 랑그 샘라 데 가와타 데와 마토코모 용지메 세르 문이 냠nem시나 딥셔나 타머 게위라고 진짜 드니 옛나랑 소수 리 tambo namki napa laksar tunjung namki kale shini tubatang sambatang gombab shina kancham chigla kerangchu teni hako yongres
Tampa namsum.
teni kale shini nyamleng ke kanat teni tamba namsam de kale karchemboyin kale hako yongres odeni
the great omniscient one, Longchen Rabjam, said, in the beginning, cultivate bodhicitta. For the main part, it is non-referential. And for the conclusion, it is that of dedication. If our practice is held by these three principles, then it will become a path to liberation. So that was pretty butchered translation, but the meaning is there. And so these three excellent principles of practice, the excellent beginning, bodhicitta, the excellent main part, non-referential, samadhi, and the excellent conclusion, that of dedication. These are the three excellent principles of practice. And whenever we engage in any practice, we want the practice to be enveloped in these three as its sort of structure. Now, for someone who is a beginner to the Buddhist path, who is new to the teachings and practice, then it's okay if our practice doesn't have the three principles, these three excellent principles of practice complete. In fact, it's not possible without further study and practice and development in the path for us to have all three complete in our practice. And so I'm sure that there are some of you today listening to these teachings who are somewhat newer to Buddhism and Buddhist practice. And so you may not fully understand or know the three principles of practice or how to incorporate them. And that's fine. You can at least develop the knowledge of knowing that these three are necessary, and the aspiration that in the future your practice will incorporate all three as its structure. And especially if you embark on the path, the Buddhist path of the Mahayana, that these are the key points that make it what it is, and that they're always necessary to be complete. And so when we first enter the path, of course, it can't be expected that as a new practitioner, we're going to automatically be able to incorporate these three excellent principles of practice. Initially, we're simply inspired. We hear teachings and we feel inspired by them and interested in them. And when it comes to the Buddhist path, it's always positive. Positive in the beginning, positive in the middle, positive in the end. Positive in the beginning, meaning when we first hear the teachings of the Buddha, the Dharma, that it's inspiring and interesting, and we appreciate that. And it doesn't bring a discomfort or an unhappiness and so forth. And so it's positive in the beginning. Positive in the middle is when we take those teachings and we contemplate them, when we really begin to examine and analyze and investigate their meaning and determine and reach a determination, a certainty in what they mean. And then we dispel our doubts and we clear away our misunderstandings. And we gain deeper and deeper insight and greater appreciation for that meaning as being true and so forth. And then we have a very positive experience of having no hesitation or doubt and so forth. And so in the middle, at the time of contemplation, it's positive. And then in the end, at the time of meditation, this is the time where we incorporate it into our experience. In fact, the Tibetan word for practice means incorporated into our experience. And so I could have also just said, this is the time when we practice. And that means that we make those teachings our experience. And when we do that, it brings a great joy and ease of mind. And so in the end, it's also positive. And so in this way, in the beginning, in the middle, and the end, the Buddhist path and practice is positive. And so for those of you who are newer to Buddhism and to these teachings, then it is a gradual process of first hearing teachings and then contemplating them and then meditating on them. And eventually, over time, we really do understand and have enough knowledge and experience to be incorporating these 3 excellent principles of practice as the structure for our practice. And we begin to appreciate their importance and value and how they are the kind of crucial and key points of our practice. And that comes slowly over time. And so even here, as we're hearing about this, then that's something that, a knowledge that we will gradually develop, and at least now we can know that it's something that we want to understand, and that understanding will come. So.
어때리 되니 가수 냠는 가렙시나양 데라 비오라치기오레 무르지치기오레 지치기오레 가수 리카 가레리짱나 ngonro ngurji jisum duga tok tangbo tendi yore lika chiklina gomjuk warsam za chigyor ba de namjin ko nyamnim shepi ni kamnayang tendi yore tip sherna tok tangbo de ni tamba namba sam kanani jora semke tamba ze te teri ti jora semke tamba ze te gewa kan dribnayang tap ki zimbar shepa jora semke tamba ze 다때 제나 아주 곤롱제기오래 곤롱 샹칩 샘기 곤롱 요구 지피톤테 따때제기오래 디 샹칩 샘그 샘도 께고 지피톤테 때리 다데 아주 드니 디 데 요나네 다랑 그 첸디스탄도 리카 가렙시나 있나요? 자 직된 글록 직시나 있나요? 샹칩 그 샘제한 디능라 직된 글록라 시탑 차창 예후데 가르시니 시고 요레제나 삼밥상오 직 독립 시고 지피톤 디능 요레 샹칩 샘제야 디능 대비진도는 나주 출룩 거왕도 냠는 거랑 거왕도 삼로 당나야 답샹칩 그 샘제야데 남영 메트모롱 와레 제키오레 딥셔나 샤와 가렌 곱죽나야 샹칩 그 샘데 가르침보레스 딥셔나 샹칩 그 샘데라 데니 담오 나주 랑랑 소수 땅이 gember 케랑 솔라 미 로브종 마보 샤키오비 gem선 데레와 로브종도 샤야 차창마데 쪼보 샹칩 그 샘데 줄라 깨탑지 가래요 삼는 아주 뜻장장 샤크요레 계란수 마부 냥크요레 아니로 니크나라 샤데 로브종 다롱이 삼나 계란솔라 아니 영도 영니 껴도 가르침보레 제니 말압나 고르단 포크만도 삼그도 디 gem슨 가레레제나 소수 냠님 셰크메 비스탁레 계란수 마히위 딱 말해 인나 계란수 냠님 셰크 문이 샹초 그 샘라 냠님 셰크메 비스탁레 삼그요 디 gemsanki 영니 영도 셰크 영니 영도 셰크 그요레 던디레스
So whenever we engage in practice, there's the beginning, which is the preparation, what goes before. Then there's the actual practice itself that we're doing, the main part. And then there's the conclusion. And in fact, everything in the world is like this. Everything has what goes before, the beginning or preparation. And then you have your main part, whatever action or activity it is that you're doing. And then you have your conclusion in which it ends. And so everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And practice is not an exception to this. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And then there's the structure of what that is that makes or forms that practice. And that here is the 3 excellent principles of practice. The beginning is in which we cultivate bodhicitta. And that's the first excellent principle of practice, that we want our practice to be embraced by or motivated out of that positive intention. So that whatever Buddhist practice we're doing, that it is because of that intention. That's our reason for doing it. And so it's called the excellent principle of bodhicitta, in which we cultivate this motivation. Cultivate means intentionally generate, that we cultivate and generate this intention to ensure that it's what's motivating us to do practice. And this intention then extends to not just our specific practices, but everything that we do. Even in a worldly way, all of our kind of daily activities and so forth, the mundane things that we have to engage in to live, and the things that we do in the world and so forth, those also ideally then are always based on a kind heart. That we always have a kind heart that's motivating us as our reason or basis of whatever we're doing. And that, too, is an aspect of bodhicitta. And so when it comes to the spiritual approach of the Dharma, then when we practice, we also have a motivation, a thought that's motivating us. And then the one that is sort of indispensable for this approach that ensures its sort of final outcome and directs it in the direction of a spiritual path and practice that we're aiming is that of bodhicitta, the awakened intention. And so at all times, before any kind of activity, be it mundane, be it spiritual, we want to begin with bodhicitta, to begin with that positive, pure intention, because that is the most important factor determining the actual and true outcome and result, or the fruition of whatever we are doing. And this is the very reason why Rinpoche said that I teach on lojong, mind training, again and again and again. As all of you know, I teach it over and over again. And mind training's principal focus is all the methods, all the different techniques for generating and giving rise to bodhicitta. And so, as you know, because most of you who have been studying with me for years now have heard these teachings on numerous occasions for 20 years, and I keep teaching it, and I keep teaching it, it's because of its importance. And it's also because I'm not sure that you fully comprehend it yet. That I'm not, and the reason for that is I know that you hear the teachings, and I know that you intellectually understand that bodhicitta needs to be the motivation. But I'm not sure that you've implemented it enough, that you've actually done the practice sufficiently that it is what's motivating you. And so you need to do more practice on that. And that's why I keep emphasizing this point, and why I repeatedly keep giving these teachings on mind training again and again, because I see that you need it. Listen.
Teri, teni tat tertawu teni shanchip ku sem zeate, tat tambo tela shanchip ku semla kachu ni yore, chikte kare zenane, jampan tonir kindon ba zenayanda. Nyangji janton lag mikpi zur zenangda oteri teni tat tena ngatu semchin tamchil lag migni dewa tang dandok shamba tang dungar tang dandok nyangji tayo kore ndeni kala yani yanto tab lojung shezate ngatu semde hali pachik tam nyegu kores nye zena karze kiore zena ne Goa tang, tendi yin na nga tsu nam ka nang la bjak ni ndedip chi ni niling che ka ndwa ti mang la niling rwa ya ti mang la nye ze ki yore te mam nye na goa chakpo chi ni nduk duk yore goa chakpo chi yin na korang lis marong wari teni lam zo na yang dikhe yo mar jamob zo na yang dikhe yo mar globe zona dikyo mare lula koyap zona gyanchap zona yang dikyo mare peshu tangna dikyo mare deep shena ngatsu semde jongpo gowa dawo chikre oya te kare guhyore zenane shangchip ku sem ku mye guhyore yani yang to shambata nyang je ni ka lobjung shini yani yang to mye guhyore ta tur tak to dagzan tang dag chinzan chang chang kang lan dug dug yo na dikyo mare yargi kompen ro manduk zatingi tere kerang tola Gimbert, I'm a little bit disappointing on your practice, actually. Because I'm always checking your motivation. Always checking on you. But I feel your ego doesn't meaning.
Yeah, maybe we need what you just said for them to understand that. Needing or tanning.
And your selfishness. Always me, the first. Am I right? You think last year and this year you check your own mind. Is a little bit better or not? Are you taming your selfishness, your ego, or not? Danzantang, cleaning self, and dakchinzan, cherishing self. Gimsan karezena, danzantang, dakchinzan te nyumo patang stongum jongni chakayore. Mergevim jongni chakayore. Lingamba mampum jongni chakayore. Ti gimsan king atun zambu lang la tangsang. Ndiri mapo che nyoda yong kyo pate. Rana sosu gerk nyoda mapo, dungar mapo tang. Zambu lang kasa kalak maktuk mapo, nyoda mapo yong kyo pate. Ndini tsawan dini yong kyo rwa. Jikten question tamchen deni yong kyo re. Chu nyamlem shenkan nam question yang deni yong kyo re. 당전 당닥 진전 해야 돼. 나주 로브종 돈들 밈죽라 요아 땡케노가 공고 가레 송송세나 추 당전 드르위 담거 주스 다는 해야만 줬도스 당전 드르위 담거 주송세레 공고 유송아마자 냠송 렌송리 다 샘나 판톡송 샘더송 다 선인이 흐송나연 요바만 독세
Divartikirna.
야야 디바소
When we're tanning leather, he was using the word kneading. But like when you're going like this, is that called tanning in English? Tanning leather? That part where you're... I mean, it's like kneading, but you can't... I don't think we say we're kneading in leather. I have to use the leather term because that's the analogy. Okay. So when we look at bodhicitta, the motivation that is bodhicitta is twofold. So there's actually two intentions. The first is the compassionate wish to benefit others. Or you could also call that the pursuit of benefiting others. And basically, that's where our motivation, our thoughts are other-centric. And so our focus is on all other sentient beings, specifically out of loving kindness, of wanting them to have happiness. and out of compassion of wanting them to not suffer. And that's why so combined, then that is the compassionate wish of wanting to benefit others. And that's why we train in loving kindness and compassion, respectively, again and again and again, and all the lojong that we do, because essentially what we're doing is we're kneading it into our mind. The Tibetan have such good words that can be used in these ways. And the analogy is like leather that's getting tanned. And you have to like tan the leather really well so that it becomes flexible and soft. And then you can use it for whatever you're going to make. And so at first, the leather is very hard. And so it's like hard leather. And then you can't use it for anything. And if you just left it in that state of being like hard leather without tanning it, you couldn't make gloves, you couldn't make shoes, you couldn't make clothes, you couldn't make jewelry. And so the first process is of tanning it. And so our mind is like hard leather as the analogy. And then with mind training, we're tanning it. We're just like you tan leather, we're softening it and making it flexible and so forth. By doing that again and again and again, the repetition of mind training. Because otherwise, if we're not doing the repeated mind training over and over and over again, then we're still sitting in the same self-centered focus that's not focused on others, but it's focused on ourself. It's grasping to self, self-cherishing, ego clinging. And then our mind is not benefited. So just hearing the teachings and dribble-drabbling in them is not enough. It doesn't benefit the mind because it still stays like hard leather in that state of self-clinging, in that state of self-cherishing. And this is where Rinpoche spoke in English. He did, right? Okay. I was writing it down, and then I was like, no, he's speaking in English. Yeah. And so we need to tan our mind. That was the last thing he said, which was where I said we need context here, which is that the mind training is softening our mind, is changing our mind, and it takes repetition, repetition, repetition. Because otherwise, we stay in that state of me, in the self-clinging and the cherishing of self. And what does that produce? That produces disturbing emotions. That produces negative and harmful actions. They all come from, and their source is that of self-clinging. Why do we think there are so many problems in the world right now? All of the turmoil, all of the affliction, all of the things that are happening, why is there so much suffering going on? Individually, in our own personal lives and experiences, universally as a whole, there's so much desire involved, and envy and jealousy and anger and pride, and all these mental afflictions, those didn't just happen on their own. Where did they come from? In the Buddhist tradition, everything is a cause that comes from its result. And so the root source of all of these is self-clinging, is self-cherishing. They all come from that. That's the problem. That's the root problem of everything that's going on in the world right now. That's the root problem of why practitioners are not progressing. Why they're still constantly thinking, first and foremost, I and me, self-clinging and self-cherishing. And that's why we do mind training. You may recall in the 7 key points of mind training in the Colophon, he says, having sought out the instructions for subduing self-clinging and grasping. Now, even if I die, I have no regrets. And so not only did he seek out those teachings, but he did them again and again, repetitively, practiced, and experienced the benefit of that. And then his final statement is very impactful there. It means something. He tamed his mind and said, so even if I die tomorrow, I have no regrets. Also.
Teni tanga tu nela shamba nyangji goni chuchik yunayang chuchik nyamlen shina ngakchik ndonna nyamlen kari shinango de la kolhom juya te pe matbi karchembores shangchup sangwa dang sanji namlap chunugya chik yo marwa karjina khontu semti ramjin kirtsarore sham dang nyangji dagni te kirtsarore Teni sosu kewo nam jugu hyore semte. Tango juni maung pap jumen kawartan rogre. Nguni tani ngatu semte yekpo mandorna kare rezena na ngi gimbar zekhiwat teni je gambo pak sonte. Lo chus rowa tang chu lam ton rowas. Lo chus rowa chu lam ton rowasil. Lo chu gi shoklan korwate. Di jila chulam tunrowachi gogiyore. Tani chutel cheksona blo chusun rogiyo mare. Chulam tuyang rogiyo mare yakpochik chutel chekne. Kare rezena kerang tsu yang to chuma pochik tu. Tani tat alola kenang la chatsik ketola mangpo donya tang. Tani YouTube kenang la ndona ramen natsok ma shakhiyorwa. Tani mangpo nyen. Tep ramen natsok pap lak. Tani zambu lang kasa kala nro. Tani yagi lamayo sandro, magi lamayo sandro, nyamlen mepshit, chu mapo tu, nyamlen mapshina chutet de tani. Tani kunzang lami jalong nang la, yoa Khentrul Rinpoche kunzang lami jalong nang la. Chutet chu ki thoriya pe kakbo rezere. Chu tet sarnib zonte ta chu gindur gana pekak pore. Tani mundur ze marta yina pekak bo chaksare. Markok jompo num ki matur zere. When ngatu ngi ngama kerang tola love yindi lord yu de mambochik. Ngatu pod ni samlo tana mar gyamar ngapche gya tani mambochik ayar khalap sokni. Tendrola teni sokhuyore, marma bob sok. Teni tongkala mar chachang marco konanglap chukhuyore. Ti marco the leder kusure. Tinanglap chugni Vjagna lo re revjendo ti marco pesho tankeyore. When a lop jonga nyikh samche chikkana murgit komanam aita amye. Ti rang ni zonte marco chik te pesho tani yore gat. Yena marco kora tombore. Num tang nyam to lo mambo mazat murab mambo dugyore. Ta marco tombore sere. Tani marco ta num kindur guna num kindur tabk mare. O nyamlen mapshina ndidi yung yore sere. Hako songa. Authentically.
And so in this way, we want to cultivate this motivation of love and compassion prior to receiving Dharma teachings, prior to doing Dharma practice, prior to anything that we do, like mantra recitations or whatever meditation or practice that we might do. The very first thing is to cultivate our motivation, which means intentfully. It has a sense of changing it on purpose And so that's what cultivating motivation means. And so we want to begin by cultivating that motivation. Buddhas and bodhisattvas, they don't have to cultivate bodhicitta because they've already actualized it, and so it's spontaneously present or uncontrived within them. To cultivate means we contrive it, we produce it through a contemplative practice process, and we generate that mind. But by contriving it again and again, over time, eventually it becomes uncontrived, and that's where we want it to go. We want it to become uncontrived. If we don't fully tame our mind through this training, then it gets harder and harder to do. In general, the great master Gampopa, in some of his most famous words, he said, turn your mind toward the Dharma, turn the Dharma into the path. So first we want to turn our mind toward the Dharma, and we have like the interest and so forth, but then the next step is what? Is to make the Dharma into the path, which means that by cultivating and practicing the Dharma, we begin to experience the path. And if we don't do that, what happens is we become kind of hardened to the Dharma, what we call Dharma blase, where we haven't tamed our mind with it. We haven't engaged in the techniques sufficiently, applied it sufficiently, but we've heard it many, many times, and we keep hearing it. But then we don't tame our mind with it. And so maybe and especially these days, like the availability of Dharma teachings and inspiring bites and things being said about the Dharma are everywhere. They're all over the internet. So we can get these inspiring sound bites and we can listen to Dharma instructions. Or we can read 1 million books, or we could travel all around the world going to events. And we go to that Lama up there, and we go to this Lama down there. But we're not doing practice. We're hearing a lot. And then slowly we begin to be kind of like hardened by it. Like the mind becomes blasé to it. Like in Patrul Rinpoche expressed so beautifully in the words of my perfect teacher, where he said, once one is blasé to the Dharma, it is difficult for the Dharma to tame their mind. It's not impossible, but it's very hard at that point because our mind has become sort of used to the Dharma. And there's a Tibetan saying that says, it's hard to tame, just like, and the word tanning in leather, for leather and taming is the same. So there's a lot of puns in the Tibetan language that we miss in the English. But they say just like hard leather can be tamed, aka tanned with oil. But the leather from a butter bag cannot be tanned, aka tamed with oil. So this has a very historical, cultural context here, which is in Tibet. Then we gather hundreds and hundreds of pounds of butter in the summertime, and then we store them in these large leather sacks for the winter. And these sacks are used every year. So they're filled with butter every year as their storage. And sometimes they're used for 15 years, sometimes 20 years. Rinpoche said sometimes for generations. Now I know why the butter is so strong. So it's the same butter bag that all the butter goes in, generation after generation, year after year. And it just becomes really hard. So at that point, like if you have hard leather that's just hard leather, but it's fresh, and you apply oil, you can tan it and it will make it soft.
넘달한 요래
But if you apply oil to a leather from a butter bag, it will never get soft. It cannot. And so that's the analogy, is that when we're inundated or we're around and familiarized with Dharma constantly and so forth, then we become blasé to it, and then it's hard to tame our mind with it. We become sort of used to it and so forth. And so that's the analogy, that it's difficult to tan, aka it's difficult to tame a butter bag leather. And once it's become that. And so same with the mind. If we inundate it with the Dharma, but we don't really practice and don't really apply ourselves, then eventually we will become blasé. So.
Blasé, I like that word.
It's French.
Blasé. You have to chant blasé 100 times. Blasé, blasé, blasé. Blasé, 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 blasé. Maybe it helps. Tani dabores, that tani re deep shirna tani tangatsu sim tendor shepalana tamchek hamakowa mepa lil hawu gonin doroshepi tap tambate ngoni shamtanyar jendere Muhiwa kang yo marwa ngatu chamen namji nyamnen yorwa te nyamare la Nyin lan sam chan lan sam tama tuk semla khartab tsigrere kyorni tani ti tonte semna la khartab na pe yagbo yore ton zamo yil lap sam jang tsikatun tu shiba jiba tere tsik kyangwab jopa chamki pantok chenbo yo mar chu kare yen kyangna kanang ni chik lapni ti ton semna la kharna pe yagbo yore 돈 잠모 일라 삼장 측하던 두시바 제기오래 참에 남지 영니 영도 회나라나 소수 타나랑 그 투잡이니까 죽보 트비니까 비엔나 단때 맞았더니 회나랑 그 탑창나라 칼랍조비니까 비엔나 되니 Young Chalak Teto Chinala Trivi Nikapina, Katu Yena Semla Kartab Karaba. Deto Tonang Kanyamnen, Tonsam Kanyamnen, Katu Yena, Atu Kartabia Kanyamnen. Lil Havo in Bachigrinde. Dansang Tutsondala, Mixer to Munib Shanan Dertavu, Karchimboch, Mundu, Sam Hudungaran Semnala. The Shamtanyang Lovjung Shayatan, the 참men 남지 때서 로브종 셔야때 따고 가르침보지 문이면 뚝 삼거든 뭐 마부 샘나라 직나 마부 요래 그냥 좀 하고 요래 똑바당 샘철 마부 랑게 요래 가르때 큐 로브종 시니 샘친 탐철라 슈그리 메파 때 땀념 참매라와 슈그리 메파 탐철라 판셈 샴바당 녀제티 지 강탑지다 소수 직나 때 메토 그래 Dungar teng nyorun rob je geore. Teni jan ki tanto ngato honosem ma po tang konzen ma po yorwa. Tetso chasang jido yore. Tansa ngato chigi jarkab la mergawa ta chapter la mergawa. Pe mergawa ma po ching duga ngato. Ti kabla kare she guk yore, lovjong she guk yore. Garde kyu dagzan dang dagchin zang nga tang ngap samna jignang che ra. Semcher jemang rogunduwa. Dela tenni gangzak kwena chapten kan decho layang dangsem mang boyo ba. Honosem mang boyo ba. Khonsu tola mergawa mang boyo ba. Tendi mampo kari ongkodwa. Tipshina tangsang mixer ten mar gukhdo zangi kyaran tola te nantang goni yukhiyo. O ta terang te tsamzaka shangchip ke semlap sambab zangmo chiglap lovjong she dokchi ze mangro. Ngatu love yung nang la yo a kerang tu tang khiore. Love yung ton den mi nang la. Kaking dap sam khiore. Nga pe nyuda ma po du love yung shet ko manduk sam ka. Yin nang love yung shet ko manduk sam ya korang love yung shet jig na ri yore. Korang. Tag yug ni nyamnen jamba chik shet ko yo mar. Korang love yung ship jig na ri zere. Tab love yung de diri ro ba. Katu yin na kayo lagiyot. It's a very beautiful truth. The truth.
So,
Okay.
and when it comes to taming our mind and working with our mind with love and compassion, it's not something that we can't comprehend or that we don't understand. It's not something that's difficult or hard. It's just something that we have to do. And so we should do it because it will make a difference. There's nothing in love and compassion and all that it is that we can't understand. At minimum, for example, we could recite the words of the four immeasurables. We could recite that prayer 3 times during the day and 3 times at night. And as we say those words, we bring to mind the meaning. And so it said, if bringing to mind the meaning, and then recite the words. If we're just reciting the words and not thinking about the meaning, then there's not much benefit. But if we can bring that profound meaning to mind as we recite the words, it will benefit just even doing that. Just even reciting the 4 immeasurables every day and every night, 3 times. Or bringing to mind the meaning when we're in our kind of ordinary, like mundane activities that you engage in every day, like when you're taking a shower. You can bring that to mind. When you're washing your face in the morning. When you're washing your clothes, when you're cleaning, the things that you do on a regular basis all the time are places which you have the space to bring this to mind. And so, of course, there's the value and importance of dedicated practice sessions where you dedicate a time to do the full practice, to implement the techniques for cultivating that. And then there's in between, and all the places in between sessions. It's not that hard, but it is a matter of doing. And so these mind trainings are really important. Training our mind, doing Lojong in loving kindness and compassion, in the 4 immeasurables, is crucial. Especially right now, people are overwhelmed with their fears and anxieties. And they're just afflicted over all the things that are taking place in the world right now and in their personal lives and so forth. When we're experiencing fear, when we're anxious, when we're concerned and worried, that is a time to do mind training. And if you look at the 4 immeasurables, immeasurable equalness is holding all sentient beings without partiality, is including everyone in that meditation, and not excluding anyone. And then if you meditate on love and compassion for all of these sentient beings, each and every one, inclusive of everyone, you will find not like, just the people that you love and care about, that you like, and then you think that the people that you don't like, and they're bad, then how are you doing, what do you need for the four immeasurables to happen right now? When we talk about immeasurable equalness, are you doing that? Are you holding them all with love and compassion? So when you experience fear and you're worried, that's the time to do love and compassion meditation, to cultivate immeasurable equalness, to incorporate all the people that you've villainized and that you have aversion to and so forth. Incorporate everyone in that love and compassion. You'll find that the fear begins to ease. And at the very least, that you have less suffering over it. And so it will help that mind that is holding impartialities. Oh no. Just a second, let me recoup so it doesn't become constant. So that we're not holding to the sense of others as being villains, the harm doers, and we're having grudges and we have all this affliction. That there's all these things that we're constantly inundating ourselves with dislike. I dislike this country. I dislike these politicians and so forth. Where is the mind training in all of this? Where is what we most need to ease the affliction? Because we're stuck in the self-clinging and the self-cherishing and thinking, I, me, my, and we have all these worries around those things. And then we have, all of those on our side, and then we have the otherized, the people that we've othered, and we have aversion to them, like politicians and so forth, and we have so much dislike that we just dwell on. This is not helping our minds, and it's not helping the world. And so these days, what we need more than ever is mind training, and we need more of it, not less of it. That is what we need. And the mind training, there isn't any thought that we can't apply it to. So sometimes people think I'm too upset, I'm too disturbed, I can't do mind training. Do mind training with the thought, I can't do mind training. Because mind training, they have this great expression, it's in your mouth, it's in your hands, which is like you can apply it to anything. Every single thought that arises, you can use that to do mind training. Any of the techniques, it's applicable to everything. And that's why it's such a beautiful truth, Rinpoche said. That's all.
어때리 되니 어때타우리 되니 다 대잠스치 되니 시간적으로 셈세야 되담 타르투비 디체토랑 그 냠는 집시나 람라 중난 타르투비 리뷰요라 대타운 타르투비 리뷰데 gem선 히비고니 히르비고니 돈 돈이 닝아 대타운 리뷰직 토퍼식 인 삼네 아주 냠는 시나 미규리요라 가립신이 균냠냄식 키워리잖아. 샘신 탐식 그 쳇도 타투비 런이 타투비 류직 토퍼식 고삼 타투비 뎀바 타투비 라나메비 윤던당 담바지 런이 식 고삼 런그 루당 ngak당 yit ਸਮ보데는 인결와당이 ng만남신 마임바 데니 인결와 당니는 름기는 좀 그 차 탐치 파니 연된 그 차 탐치라 죽니 럼기 런이 그 룽가 있음 인결봤더니 되니 마음 바뀌온 건set 연된 건든 그런 진짜직 토바텔라 나주 상지 검하세나 상집세나 때제기 때라 토버시고 삼야테 타 상집 그 셈거 zurshima hiribki dzogchen lamik pi zur zayate tere. O tada hajan tani karchimbo re, kulhong kare yinkyang tani shangchib di li tangwo parnam yinna ne, zurshima te hiribki dzogchen lamik pi zur jepa te, titi kakbo yore, semna la khartabya. Yinna yang, tani zur ngama te, yung top kare, jan semchin tani Jantin donyer kindomba. Jan la pamba ton donyer windomba. Sham nyang jenika tamchi kisemla khartabia chigre. Tansang ke tuchot dala dani ngatu thana karma chigla rana sosu semna la yakpo chi khartabna phantok pe chembo yore rana sosu tata dani dangzin chig kharwala chig tata dakchinzin kharwa ni kamna chig tata chorna kande du kyopu chingdoge. Mandogwa Deni lamsang tehakoni lamsang shambatang nyarji la sokpa tamchet jan la pansam logic lamsang chi kharta ti ji la kerko tyang chornang kande duk chik tada kande duk chornang kyopu yore devu yore nyonyong chik shinayang nyonyong ku chokki devu chik yore sem to tambo dawo chik yore lamsang chakdo kore sem gimbar moptan bandawo 옛날 땀보 책으로 요래. 등군이 고랑데 연던데 갖고 소아. 어들이 신이 다때 좀 조라 샘께 담바제때 나주페 게와테 탑기즘버 세바 조라 샘께 담바레. 담박섬 그나니 니바 무지 밍메 담바레 때탄 데닝이 때랑 답시학게 디지 ngumapsha 디지 망탁송다 옛나 다덴데니 만로단 직지레 삼거든. Ta jonton mula lepson ze terta u kolhon dan chipi goni te tenindi jonton dalla sambar joch
And so, once we're motivated out of love and compassion to benefit all beings, then how do we go about doing that? And then the next step is the goal of how to accomplish that. And the ultimate aim to attain the state of awakening, whereby we learn what the ultimate fruition has. We have the reasons and logic for what the state of awakening is. That knowledge is called wisdom. And so the second facet of bodhicitta is the wisdom that pursues the ultimate state of awakening in order to benefit all beings. And so we recognize that we need to attain that ultimate state. We understand what it is, and we understand how it will benefit beings, the state in which we have removed all flaws and have fully realized and actualized all positive qualities. And that is a process of completely transforming our body, our speech, and our mind, completely unlike they were before. Gradually, one by one, eliminating and freeing ourselves from flaws while cultivating positive qualities and realization. And then, as our body, speech, and mind transform, we can bring greater and greater benefit to others, eventuating in, ultimately, in the future, a complete freedom from all flaws and becoming a full embodiment of all positive qualities, what we call the state of awakening or the state of Buddhahood or enlightenment. The words in Tibetan mean a freedom from flaws and the complete realization of all qualities. Whenever you say those words, that's actually what you're saying. And so we aim to attain that in order to benefit beings. And this is the second facet of bodhicitta, which is the wisdom of the great perfection of that ultimate state. And that becomes our aim. So when we aim to attain enlightenment in order to benefit beings, we have the second facet of bodhicitta, the wisdom that is focusing on the goal of awakening. When people first begin to practice the Buddha's path, the first aspect is the compassionate wish to benefit others. And that is the easiest one for people to relate to and begin to develop. The second facet of bodhicitta, the wisdom that sees the state of Buddhahood as the goal to achieve that aim, is harder to understand initially without further teachings and so forth. But at the very least, that we can start with the cultivation of a kind heart, of wanting to benefit others, the first facet of bodhicitta, the loving kindness and compassion towards all beings. And then gradually, over time, we'll cultivate the second facet of bodhicitta, the wisdom that aims toward the ultimate fruition. When we work with loving kindness and compassion, we can see that there are immediate effects on our mind and how it operates. For example, you could, test where you're focusing only on yourself. You're completely self-centeredly focused, that feeling. How does that look? Is that your happy place? Rinpoche said, probably not. When we're so overly focused on ourselves and how we feel, and me and I. If at that time you recognize that, you look at how that feels, and then you're able to then focus on others, specifically with loving kindness and compassion, and you can generate that mind, and you feel loving and compassionate toward all other beings, how does that mind feel? That is a mind that has a great ease and joy and well-being. The two do not feel the same. So even a small amount of love and compassion, or a couple moments of that, can be highly impactful, can be very powerful, and bring a great degree of joy, of well-being. It can stabilize our minds and bring a stability of mind and enhance our own innate positive qualities. And that's just even doing it a little bit. The more we do it, the more that we will experience that. And so this is then the first excellent principle of practice, that of cultivating bodhicitta, which we want all of our positive actions to be motivated out of. And now we come to the second aspect of bodhicitta, which is the excellent main part that is non-referential, and this is the actual focus of this text, Rinpoche said, and so we'll continue here.
Teni tat sogni zonju ko ore ndala thomar gewa like ki ton wartu gewa jonton thamar gewa mjuk ton tang sem yore tinani tawo thomar gewa like ki ton zate tam 찬돈 tang chobar jopa nindu tinani 찬돈 de 찬돈 zate jonde man kare rezeri te sogni zonju ko nyamlen nakke melon zate ta tere 속니 제때 가르레제나 당아추 속삭 드밥장 세나 디캅라 속니 제키오레 속니 드 가르제나 믹지 그 속다 믹믹 그 속제테 니오레 믹지 소놈 그 속제 회나가추 투바당나 삼바당 곰발라 속바당 양더니 짐바 츠좀 종와라 속바당 시간 차라바당 꼬랍셰파 라속바 대니 대소 차 참아대 대니 믹지 그 속당 대진도 믹맥 그 속자대 다회나 오마 침보 오미 따와 곰바다 똥바니 제키오렌 도나 똥니 그 따와 곰바다 양나 마하무드라 식자 침보 곰바다 양나 대니 냥마 빌루라 Dzogchen 곰자대 oda tere di mala tani mingmek tsogzer 대양 tsogre mikchi ke tsogtang mingmek tsognika nyamnenla zonjuk rogu khiore ezekiore di mala tsogni zonjuk nyamnen zer tonla nika yogure jipitonde yekhu yena nyamnen chiknala nika changu khiore ezer di mala zonjuk zekiore ta tonla nyamnen chiknala mikchi tang mingme nika changu khiore di sherna konta ngi tamba nam sem gure ze soa tangop shangchuk ku sem gure nipa nguji mingme tambi zin gure jiwa jila ngowa tambi zin gure zeate texamte koro rana soso la sheli yore texamte la te de nyamnen pe natchikre Jengen de wa kerang zo ngi mambo kerang zo la di long de ndenyo chu drupa li kyang druptsur zo ze chu mambo chi kerang ka hwena nyimare la chitat mambo deni lo mambo drup deni drup dupa li ze druptsur zo re ze tangpo tekhi gore ze chu mambo chi drup kapshi dupa li druptsur ki gore ze terwa drupi tsulki pa tere ze chu dupali kyang duptsur so se ta kare de zena chu duptsur tamaki na chu jin tun lam drog mare tedi res wow
So as we look at this text, the mirror of essential practice instructions unifying the two accumulations, this was provided on for all who were registered, and hopefully you were able to print it or have it on your device. We'll be following this. So we can look at this text in terms of having three sections. It has the beginning, the middle, and the end. The beginning is the meaning of the title and the paying of homage, and then the main part, and then there's the main body of the text, and then there's the conclusion. So we're looking at the title here for the beginning, and it's called The Mirror of Essential Practice Instructions Unifying the Two Accumulations. And so the two accumulations, or the technical terms, are referential merit, the accumulation of referential merit, and the accumulation of non-referential wisdom. So the accumulation of referential merit is all of the things that we do when we engage in, for example, listening to teachings, contemplating their meaning, engaging in meditation on them, generosity, ethical discipline, when we do circumambulations, all the positive actions we do to benefit others, and all the practices then that we engage in, which involve referential focus and objects and so forth. That's called the accumulation of referential merit. And then we have non-referential wisdom, the accumulation of that, and that is the view that realizes true nature, such as the view of the great Madhyamika. That is to say, the Madhyamika view of emptiness, understanding emptiness, having that view. Or if we could call that the view of the Mahamudra, in some traditions, and also in the Nyingma approach. Then there's specifically the Dzogchen view. Any of these, when they're accurately cultivated, is called the accumulation of non-referential wisdom. So these are the two accumulations. referential merit and non-referential wisdom. And here it says unifying the two. Unifying the two means that ideally when we practice, we're incorporating both of these as components of our practice. And so we have both the accumulation of referential merit as a component, certain components of the practice, and we have the accumulation of non-referential wisdom. And that's why these are when we hear this term, the two accumulations, and the need to cultivate both, incorporate both into our practice and to realize both. And that's why the practice format incorporates these two accumulations. If you look at the three excellencies, the excellent beginning of bodhicitta, that would be the referential merit. And then the non-referential main part would be the non-referential wisdom. And then the conclusion of dedication, which is both. So in this way, when we look at the three excellent principles of practice, that is the incorporation of, or we could say the unifying of the two accumulations in a single meditation or practice session. And it ensures, and that's why when we use those as our framework, as our construct, the three excellent principles of practice, it ensures that all the necessary key points of practice are present every time we go to practice. There's a saying, it is more important to know how to practice than to practice. That the knowing how to do it is, even if we only do it a little, is much more effective than doing lots and lots of practice. Maybe extremely diligent practicing and practicing and practicing and practicing, but not knowing how to practice and thereby not incorporating the essential key points of practice, be much more effective to know how to practice. And so understanding how to practice is at first more important than doing the practice, because otherwise we aren't actually doing the practice. And so in the beginning, then it's better to understand how than to just do. And so then if we don't understand how to practice, we might do a lot of practice, but it doesn't ever become the path for us. And that's why knowing how is so important. So, like when I make food, Rinpoche said. It's rather than making food, you should know how to make food.
No
He
matter
makes
what,
very interesting food.
No matter took a long time. It doesn't work at the end. No matter how many materials I have to make a food, it doesn't work. Which one is go to in the freezer and the refrigerator? Which one is going to not? I really don't know. I made many mistakes. Still, I really don't know which kind of going to really, refrigerator. Which one is not? Then I'm just my own. Sometimes I make up my mind and try making food. The end, oh my gosh, sometimes I'm laughing a little bit by myself. Wow, it doesn't work. So that is how you practice, as you really don't know how to do practice. Then you learned a lot. Doesn't work because you don't know how to practice. No, yeah. Salad and greens, cabbage,
like chard or kale.
No.
Not lettuce. but
the
usually it's greens. The Chinese ones, or does it matter?
Yeah, that one.
Oh my gosh.
Cabbage.
No. Anyways, it's the Chinese greens. Pak choi.
Bok choy. Salad one time I went to buy food from went to store, I bought food. And then I didn't know really bok choy or that's a salad. It looked like same for me. And
Lettuce.
Then
Lettuce.
lettuce. And then I bought it. It come back and then the cook disappeared. Because that's not it's lettuce. Later I asked somebody, they told me that's not food. That you cannot cook this. They says you have to eat dry, like that. Don't do your practice that way, okay? 어때래? 되니 손이 손주고 냠는 나기 멜롱세래. 단디니 갑소더니 Mipham Rinpoche 공그 냠스 렌처도 샷된디나라. 손이 손주고 냠스 렌처 간디레제 냠스 렌처도 샷되다. 되니 대당 냠직도 니 되니 강탑탑 맥지 당미맥 소니까 마피아니 로그인 Mipham Rinpoche 소부더니 냠랭 그나탑 샷시래. 냠스 렌처 그나타 간디레제 디그나기 다 met morongwi 다 nyambo dawote kongsong ko yinzer di mangla nazir kyo kana ki melons ena kare zena ne ta melon nangla zugnin khar karwa zugnin kare ina mandi par yakpo chi ksaro chi khar kyo re te namjin te ni when nga chu melon nangla rang ngo de china la treni te ni melon nangla tag de Teni tingo lan dik madik tang rang ke ta te yek po yung me pa tang yang na teni rang ke ngo yek po chi chu jab me pa la so pa kare chi na yang tingo la ta tong teni chi yek po tru ma char wa tang kare yo na tham chek saro ngo la kare yin ha ko to kan wa o te nam jin teni me long na ke zung yin tar to saro ching de nang song ge yin song re ko te re
The mirror of essential practice instructions unifying the two accumulations. And so this text by Mipham Rinpoche is really like pointing out the quintessential key points of practice and how our practice is complete when we unify the two accumulations in that. And so how ideally we're incorporating both into any practice. He is not really explaining what the two accumulations are. It's not so much of an information treatise, but it's more about what are the key points of how you practice it. So his focus is on how to practice. And so as we're going through his key points of how to practice, I'll give as much clarification as I can about referential merit and non-referential wisdom, the two accumulations themselves, to kind of give more detail on what those are, since those are not what are being explained here. Rather, the incorporation of those into our experience through practice is what is being explained here, and that's Mipham Rinpoche's primary focus. And so then he kind of synthesizes this wide, and the two accumulations and how we're incorporating them into practice. We look at the title, Mirror of Essential Practice Instructions. And so a mirror, whatever form you put up to it, it reflects exactly what's going on there. So like if you, after we wash our face, we typically look in the mirror to check, did we wash our face well? Is our hair messy? And the mirror reflects exactly what's going on and whether maybe we need to fix a few things still, whether we haven't washed our face completely or whether our hair is messy and so forth. And so it has this clarifying, like clearly reflecting what is going on. And so then this is a mirror for our practice, to reflect what is taking place in our practice with the essential practice instructions. And so hence the titling of this text. So.
Oh yeah, the need to some Gary took love you by a yegis and wakons on Jambirian, Condian Menyamba Nikiko. Tila Nyachik Della, Shantarlos, any Tambo, then he conquer Mipham Rinpoche, conquer Tanchu Kungo Telam Chopper.
You can read the first paragraph on page 1, the homage.
Then him Chopper Jopate, Sonre, Tam Chopper Jopate, conquer Tanchu Yerpochik Tarshim Batang, Dev Jinto, Maupana. Nderta utanchu tela junkan ta thu som gom som shen kan naw la phan thok par shawi cheto tan chobar jopa je di guba de tere di shen de ni kap som chob sam sam la nga chu la ma bo lam chobar jo khyo re khwe na sang gi lam chobar jopa tang drone ma lam chobar jopa tang te di shini la lam chobar jo khyo re te ni sam sam la nguni maim pa te ni Nipa Tunki Hala, Chopper Jopayore. They are to Yer, Tang, Shirnsan Yonkan Tang, Jan Chaluk Yonkan Halan Chopper Jopa, Maimpa. Then he Nilugla, Chopper Jopa, Tere. Nitunki Hazeate, Natu Sem Tip Deshik Nyampo, Tere. Natu Sem Tip Deshik Nyampo, Toban Tartuk Sonana, Sem Kirnilu Mohini, Tehtopan Tarshan Sona. Tela teni ton tambi lazeri. Tela jartam, shiksantam, organ chalas opa gayang yomar. Yena tela nibila to ton tambi laze the tezekyor. Dirni kapso, njambi yang lam chopper jopa yen songore te yena yang, nitun kin jambi yang lam chopper job, jokyore. Matoman njambi yang kumtok sero yinkan, rate yinkan chilam chopper jokamare. Then njambi yang tuk, number mertok pi yeki. Ngi paton kin jambe yang te sere telam chopar pyoke yen sere chuso tang war ro wa
Re tango partu. So then the beginning of the text includes the title and then the homage, which is this first paragraph, which hopefully you read. Which is the homage that Mipham Rinpoche begins the text with. And the purpose of paying homage at the beginning is to ensure that the author completes the composition of the text. And that furthermore, all those who study, contemplate, and meditate on that in the future are benefited by that text. And so with that in mind, then they begin with a paying of homage to ensure that it be brought to completion and that there be benefit in that. And the homages vary depending on the approach of the specific text and so forth. And so there will be a different homage often to, for example, a deity, or a specific Buddha and so forth. But sometimes the homage is not toward a specific deity per se, but the absolute nature, the definitive meaning, in which it isn't about then the deity and how they appear with their specific gesture and mudras and ornaments and so forth, but the ultimate natural state or the meaning of the deity, the ultimate nature itself. The definitive meaning is the ultimate nature, which is the nature of our own minds, our Buddha nature. And so it is then the Buddha nature, the nature of our mind, that once recognized and then practiced again and again and then brought to realization, the ultimate absolute state. And that is not a physical form. It doesn't have a gesture or mudra. It doesn't have an expression or ornamentation. The ultimate nature of the deity, that's what we call the absolute deity or the definitive deity. And so here, Mipham Rinpoche, the author, pays homage to Manjushri, but here in the ultimate sense, the definitive deity, the definitive meaning of the deity, the absolute nature, the actual enlightened mind of Manjushri. And so then this is how this homage is actually specifically worded as toward the definitive meaning of the deity, the definitive Manjushri. Also.
호텔에 대제나다 상기 탐책기 툭라요비 상기 회나가서 소수 겨워지기는 루제 직당 넉제 직당 샘제한테 루 룽이 있으며와 대남신 상기 남라 고당 송당 툭제한테 스며레 가야 와카 치타 제스음도가 산스크리트 같도 대제기요리 다 디나니 તની 상기 남기 툭대 까레레 제나네 툭대 랑랑 소소라 다땅아수 소수 깨우니 감니짱 요피 덱식 냥포 추 탐치 끼니룩은 타르툭바 추닛 예니 셈당 ndaramepi ramjin yopa te 상기 남기 람냠소 렌니 탑신 소요래 드파 마릭파 탐체 땅트라송이 지데라 셈크낭라 가레라 거레제나 다 윤든 꾼당 담비 예히직 요래 지금 메송와 땅들이 마르다 강양 맹칸직 땅 메송와 마레 더니 마릭파 탐체 땅트라송이 더니 셈제나한다 더니 상기 남기 툭 제나양다 대요래 니 얘기 생화제야 때 상기 탐식기 툭 랍주고래 에제키요래 더제나 상기 남기 툭 라요피 추 탐식 히트 감까 켐바요라와 던장비 영어래 에제래 자커 군두상보 제때 대제키요래 대땅운 자커 군두상때 건도상보 추탐 니룩은 타르투파데 코르와당 냥을린디파 타뜻메파 롬님도 조르송요피 후쿠레 세렘 냠바니키르고 냠니키르고 어떠니 텔랍샹사르와 yen송레 다트 니파 톤지 하제야데 타르투파데 테레 ngātsu semche namki gilayang tilhata yore yeni otani res
in whom the enlightened mind of the victors of the three times is present. All Buddhas, they express themselves. Actually, starting then with ordinary beings. Our ordinary beings, we experience ourselves in terms of body, speech, and mind. And Buddhas as well manifest in forms and speech and mind. In Sanskrit, kaya, waka, chitta. But ultimately, then what embodies or is a Buddha is the enlightened mind. And that enlightened mind of all Buddhas is also the nature of our minds, of each and every one of us, even as an ordinary being. We all possess Buddha nature. And that is the ultimate, absolute, natural state of all phenomena. Dharmata, the true nature of phenomena, timelessly such that we have never been separate from it. Our mind has never experienced a moment in which its nature was absent. And so by nature, our nature is present innately. And a Buddha is one who has practiced and fully actualized that, has fully realized that, and all the positive qualities of what that is, that timeless knowing wisdom. It's not like becoming a Buddha, then there's nothingness, and it just becomes a blank. But rather the ultimate wisdom, the Buddha's enlightened mind, that's what becomes manifest. That's what we call in Sanskrit the Jnanasattva. In English, most commonly, the wisdom deity, or timeless knowing deity, if that's how you're translating Yeshe. And that is what is present in all Buddhas. It is all of their enlightened mind. It is that omniscient wisdom that knows all phenomena and its nature. And that is the actual Manjushri. And that also is the primordial Buddha Kuntuzangpo, the ultimate natural state, in which samsara and nirvana are not two separate, distinct phenomena. They are of one taste, equal nature, the kaya of equalness. And this homage is an homage to that ultimate nature, to the definitive deity, the actual deity. And that is the nature of the mind of all sentient beings, and it has timelessly been such. What's up?
오, 때리 상살로 제 때린다나 잡도 냠슬렌 남기 누마시앙 바지 곰시니 두시게와 캬토 소파당 송네
You can read
단단히 말은 바비엔토
Yes,
가렉송 교레 제나네 단든 믹치콘 또 베르위 게르살라 제 젠니 믹미샤르비 토모 테니 zonju 냠len 메기반 타식 젬미 Dzogchen 잡던 마토 왕리 숑 송네네 단단히 말은 바비엔토 딱 송용 그래 더니 가친 직 송용 요레
You can read the next paragraph.
당아수 냠len 나 노르와요 파테초 샤드 요레 더니 말은 바비엔토 te karere zena ta shirtang atu rangara sosu nyamlen la turtakto trambata hivjinta varioti tagukyore dakpo japko rangara sosu sem dakpo japkore rangara sosu nyamlen dakpo japkore sem dakpo jap zena jamba chik yo mare nyamlen to dakpo japna sem dakpo jata chik pare nyamlen dakpo mar japna sem dakpo java yo ma su jap kure sem ti jila ti shen na nga tu takpar te teb jin to tu ba tang jo ma po ndong kure rang ko thabyak jon te cho ko mathap pa ma po ndong na phan to shita yo mare Kop dewo ke jomang pondon. Deyang ngi ngamane kyang tola yui. Tansang ke ti mama pu zub jiria ke inchi ke gangla yo pi tep da wo teni maimpa. Tanchu tsatang damba. Ngoni chen jong yak po yimba te so ndonni. Ngong ke kiu tambi nam tar ma po lo na pan to yore. Teni logni. Chu tuba ma po shit. Teni ti ton lap sam. Teni nyamlen nyam shit. Tusam gomsum chugma shin in rona. Chutet yang chagdoya yo mare. Tani rong ke nyamlen ke nat yang ke nyamlen karep she gu hako yore. Mipham Rinpoche yang kong ke yang tusam gomsum shin yi hako yore. Ma to ma tambo nyin ni yang tamchen kendu yong kan ching marawa. Deep sherna o tertarto Jonte so tusam yani yang to shinane. When a nyama revision to where shit. Nyamlen sigji tonten machine. We can sola you in a terangamo. Ton zamo yilla samyo tikaton to shipas. The nipper tangori cancer. When a mixer kikarang tonala dugni, gum japsachik ganglan dugni, gum jam duka menaya, gukure date, tonang kanyamni gukure, the pay for it. The yena where look ship in a kamnaya. Ma logni, the nit the wrong semla, subger. Tir nette. Ton zamo yilla sam chance. Ton zamo semnala, hargukiore, titonte. Sikhaton to shake your and don't cure calele. They younger what eh? Tubsam nika nyam to do your. Then it tell a nyamlen titi shinan go by a nyam to do your. Tubsam gum some wrong semta divo shake your. Then if she not too stuck to wrong semta, wrong nyamlen la norwa mipa. Wrong nyamlen tuck to give out on derwa mipa. Chu tamdarwa me pach yongu yore. Or then it is.
So first, Mipham Rinpoche begins by pointing out potential errors in practice. And in general, when we are doing practice, we implement what we've understood in practice through mindfulness, which remembers it, and then vigilant guard, and then carefulness. And then when we look at our practice, when we're practicing, what is it that is sort of where the practice is cultivating ownership of our own mind? Rinpoche, Nyamlen yi sem dakpo gyap kore sena. The Nyamlen is the dakpo gyap ken.
Sem dakpo gyap kukure la.
Lasso.
Sem dakpo gyapar chepala nyamlen dakpo gyap kure.
Okay. So we need to gain ownership over our own mind. And then what do we do to gain ownership? We practice. And so the purpose of practice is to gain ownership over our own mind. Otherwise, who is owning our mind? Who is in control of our mind? Other than the Dharma, there's nothing else that's taming your mind, that's gaining ownership and control over your mind. Otherwise, it's just ordinary mind. Look at what happens when ordinary minds don't have something that they're learning to gain ownership or control over their mind. In the world, what's going on with everybody's mind? How crazy are people right now? The unowned mind. I guess we would call them feral. Because this like ownership is like where you're the owner of your own mind. You're the caretaker. You're the one that's responsible for your mind and your thoughts. Mind. That's what it means.
How you take care of mind is you have to take care of your practice. That means that you can take care of your mind.
And so that's the purpose of doing practice. And if that's not what we're doing, then there's not much benefit. And so then when we, for example, when we're studying the Dharma, as I've mentioned before, it needs to be authentic Dharma. And so these days, lots of people have written down their ideas of what the Dharma is in English Dharma books, but not all of them are actually authentically the Dharma itself. They're people's ideas of Dharma. And so I always say, if you are genuinely wanting to study the Dharma, then study the actual scriptures, the authenticated texts and scriptures of the great masters. And so we want to study and learn them through the words, and then we want to contemplate the meaning of them and then practice them. And so the unerring way to practice is through hearing, contemplating, and meditating. And then slowly, then through that process, the key points of practice will become clear to us, and then we'll understand them. Otherwise, how could we ever understand them? Even Mipham Rinpoche. Then how did he come to know the key points of practice? Through his own study, contemplation, and meditation. It's not like we just figure it out on our own or it just happens to us. And so it's only through our own personal exploration of the authentic scriptures, of authentic Dharma treatises, in which we hear and contemplate again and again, and then practice over and over. And so we should be using those as our guide, our continuous study and contemplation, where we're reading the words. And as we're reading them, we're bringing to mind their meaning, like I mentioned this morning when I gave that quote, that is, bringing to mind the profound meaning, recite the words, which could also just mean reading. You should memorize that line. Bringing to mind the profound Dharma, recite the words of Dharma. No, bringing to mind the profound meaning, recite the words of Dharma. And so then that's how we begin to understand what we're doing through our continued exploration. And so there's the formal practice sessions, but then informally, our continued study in which we read the texts and at the same time we're thinking of the meaning. And so we're kind of both we're studying or hearing the teaching, the words, and we're contemplating them together, where we might read a point, and then you contemplate its meaning and you apply it to your mind and to your own experience. And doing that then will enhance our understanding and capacity. And so then reading the words, remembering the meaning, we're studying and contemplating the Dharma together. And then we do practice. And we practice by applying that, both in formal training, formal meditation sessions, and informally. We're blending that with our mind over and over and over. And that ensures that we don't become blasé to the Dharma, that our mind and that our practice is correct and unerring, and it's never divorced from what is positive or separate from the actual Dharma.
Teni shirtang ka nga tsu dramba tang hibjin sa ti goni rang ka sem ta yakpo chip ju hu yo tang mette rang ka sem ten trui lam lan ro kan duk tang man duk te tere te la ten go khiore dramba tang hibjin tang wa yo tsam la ten go khiore gimbert nga tsu shirtang ka mar nam ki maung pi charge ma po zo khiore teni sanyin ngi chik shek kayin terang ngi chik shek kayin teni afternoon chik shek kayin chanla chik shek kayin sanyin ngamu chik shek kayin ze plain ma po she ni maung pi mdalam hali pi ma po kerang chu schedule ma po zo ni loch chik ngun ni kyang na schedule ma po zo ni maung pi ma po dalam chek dwa te yore yin na ya ndi pi ni kabla karab she shong song wa tang ngi kareb shi song tang ngi yakpo shi song dukchap shi song samlo tang yo mar ma po ta hachang kat chembore chuba chiklam sonna lob jong nang la yore den de kerang chu tang yo mar ba thong thak ni lap sha wa ni se tang do wa nyama kang lap samlo tang na taw anil li sat pi ni kam na ne o terang ngi nyam nan yakpo she kin sam ni shang ko sem ket ga wa tang chi pa chi gum tani shi ni tani nyin kang la ta nyam len shi nan jik tang lam lan do na ka tu yin na ya nyam nen kang thap thap tran ni tani tar ta gong da la yar ta se re rang ka terang nyin kang la ka re chi song Jablo chik ta seri. Ta di nangla kerang ke ngiper taku kiyore. Di nangla norwa karib shongto kerang ke. Chudang mumtan ba karib shinduk, mergewa karib shinduk. Tani gewa katsib shinduk. Nyamlen kare yakpo shinduk. Ta rang ki chundum gu kiyore. Te mazat nyamlen kan tetsu karma khaki kanang la yang korang ke karib shi song ta kiyore. Kare zina rang ke rang la ju gu kiyore wa. Rang shkyun rang ke ju zari. Kare re zina kyu jablok la ta na rang ke kyun rang ke thong yung kiyore. Ma to koma nga chola ngargir shimbo yore. Urdangzin shimbo yore. Tu tak to ti virtuous shini. Ti drip ni. Thong mat pandawo chik tu tak to chekha yore. Chetsut reri nang la ya tak I karib shi song sam. Kare ngirwap tang gu khundup samle. Ndipa karib shong song wa cha tsama rang la luk nyen ta ore. Rang ke sem ke nang kang tramba chik nduk ore war nam nyen. Sem ke ngola trambi nam nyen nduk yore. Teni shini ngirwap tang na nima re re vjinto ngirwap tang tab yore. Dawa re re vjinto ngirwap ro yore. Lo re re vjinto ngirwap ro yore. Kare dina rang kyun rang ka map chu na jan chang chang ke cho sang ji tong ta han ten duk na yang. Rewa yo mar. Nima kang la chu ji duk na yang. Kerang ke kyun rang ke chu gu yore. Nyamlen shek gu kyun chu gu yore. Kyun mu zin gu yore. Atsu kyun kare. Rang kyun rang ka map chu na nyamlen kan yak po chi yung matit pare. Pe compare chembo ro kore te dipsi na. O teni res.
Our main tools are mindfulness and vigilance for changing and adjusting our mind, for seeing if we're under confusion or not. And so we have mindfulness, vigilance, and carefulness. These three are what we rely upon, what we depend on. We often spend a lot of time thinking about the future. What we're going to do today, what we're going to do this afternoon, what is going to happen tomorrow. We're constantly making plans for the next moments to come. And in fact, you guys like to schedule yourselves out even a year in advance, where a year from now you have a planned event or schedule of what you're going to do. But not much time is often spent reviewing the past, where we have personal self-reflection of, what mistakes we made and what we did well. And so in the mind training, Lojong, you may recall, one of the idioms is, in the beginning and the end, there are two things to do. In the beginning, meaning when we first wake for the day, and then we set our intention. We set our intention, we cultivate bodhicitta, and we set our motivation, I'm going to engage in practice, I'm going to engage in positive actions, and so forth, and we set our whole intention for how we want the day to be. So that's the first thing, in the beginning. And then in the end means at night, our review of how we did. And so at the end, before we go to sleep, we think, well, how did I do today? And we reflect. Did I practice? Did I make any mistakes? Did I engage in any actions contradictory to the Dharma? Did I engage in any harmful actions? Did I engage in positive actions? Did I practice? Do you count them and see, like literally, what percentage is spent on what? Was the main percentage in negative, afflictive, focused states and actions? Was that 50% positive and negative, or is it less? Actually count it out and see what the percentage is of all the time spent through the whole day, of every minute, what it's most focused on. Because as practitioners, our focus is on recognizing what our flaws are, recognizing when we make mistakes, and changing ourselves, transforming our flaws, changing our actions. And a big part of that is being able to review the past, to look at the past and to see, how we were before and what kinds of actions we engaged in, how much self-clinging there was, how much ego there was, and so forth. Review it like watching a movie. You can see. And then to set that resolve, to change that. We have the past is a memory bank in our mind, and we can review it. And we can see, how many positive actions did we engage in? How many negative actions did we engage in? How much practice did we do or not? And so forth. And so, for example, if you have a whole day with nothing positive, but negative thoughts and actions and afflictions, then tomorrow, if that's the same, and then the next day, if that's the same, and then the next day, if that's the same, then your whole life will just be used up until you die in that same state. And so by doing a meaningful review on yourself, you become open to change. And then you can change it one day at a time. 1 month of change, 1 year of change. But if you don't truly have that meaningful review of your own pitfalls, of your own afflictions, and you don't work on changing them, then regardless of, you could be around 1,000 Buddhas. But even if you were around 1,000 Buddhas every day, if you didn't change your mind at all, if you didn't practice, if you didn't identify your flaws and pitfalls and cultivate your positive potentials, then it wouldn't matter how many Buddhas you were around. Every day, you could be with 1,000 Buddhas all day long, and you eat lunch with them. You have coffee with them. And you go around hanging around with them. But if you don't do practice, if you don't transform your own flaws, there's no benefit that those Buddhas, that you just hanging around them is going to give you. So practitioners need to know how to review themselves and see where their own pitfalls and flaws are and transform those and work on those. Otherwise, they don't become a good practitioner. And so that's why when we look at progressing on the path, it also involves honestly looking at ourselves and being able to acknowledge and know where our own sort of weaknesses are and the things that we need to work on, and then putting in the work also. So it's lunchtime.
It's lunchtime.
We have an hour-and-a-half break. I'm not going to say the time zone because there's just too many and it'll get confusing.
1.5 hours.
Yeah, 1.5 hours.
Break. Yeah, teni di no langi kerang tola lawa chingdu. Ngato
So
Portuguese tang teni Madhyamika la kajur wa nikayori.
Rinpoche said
Yeah.
there
Thank you
are
for that.
Portuguese translators and there are Chinese translators for this teaching, and I want to thank you both
I'm
for
hoping
doing that
one day,
translation and making it
slowly,
available to other
Spanish.
people.
Slowly, Spanish translator.
That's the
I
aim.
want slowly looking for Spanish translator. Obrigado. Sonam de tamche zipanye tomne nipi danam pam kirga nanchi varlon tupai sepim solin roa dorver show. Om Hum Guru Om